wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding. Slowly ripening, may we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Please stand and join us. We'll be chanting the three refuges.
I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts.
You turn the page in your chant book and do the Heart Sutra.
Page 8. Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, no extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, ara gate, ara samgate, Gate, Hara Gate, Hara Samgate, Bodhisattva. Gate, Gate, Hara Gate, Hara Samgate, Bodhisattva. Dhamma Prajna Paramita Pranaya Sutra.
Please say. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kunga Nyima, and I am one of the Dharma teacher interns here at the temple. It's great to see a full house again. Thank you all for coming. The title of my talk today is Practicing the Four Grounds of Mindfulness. Many of us look forward to summer and the opportunity of taking a trip to escape from the busyness of our everyday life. The importance of taking a break from the duties of society is highlighted in our spiritual traditions. Jesus was a hardworking carpenter before his famed 40-day retreat in the desert that sparked his spreading the gospel. Buddha also left his duties as a prince before his 6 years of training in the forest with various teachers before he started his teaching journey. Today, I want to talk to you about how all of us might consider using the warm weather and longer days to invest more time in developing our spiritual practice. I'm going to begin with some thoughts about practice and the importance of having a regular practice. I will then introduce the sutra on the four grounds of mindfulness, the Buddha's specific teachings about practicing meditation in our everyday life. Throughout my talk, I'll try and provide you with some specific strategies for taking the Buddhist teachings into your own life. In the opening section of the Four Grounds of Mindfulness, the Buddha instructs the serious student to go to the wilderness or the roots of a tree or an empty hut to practice meditation. So it always struck me as interesting that the roots of the tree was thought of as a good place to meditate, right? Because when I look around at the trees out here, I don't see that. But in India, they have these trees where the roots start out like 4 feet from the ground. So they create these great arches, and they create like a secluded space, a shaded space, perfect for meditation. According to tradition, the Buddha's enlightenment happened after one night of continuous meditation, which was the accumulation of 6 years of practice. In Buddhism, we often call our spiritual path our practice. Most people would agree it's essential. Practice, most people would agree, is essential for improving in sports and other endeavors. Hours invested in practice lead to increased coordination, stronger muscles, and a better performance. The final goal of professional practice is a peak performance, in which the performer achieves the harmony between their body and their mind that enables them to throw a perfect strike, win a race, flawlessly play a concert, or even live a spiritually meaningful life. Buddhism is a religion that places a strong emphasis on the physical practice of meditation. While there are many different approaches to meditation, most of them share a common goal of increasing our mindfulness, our day-to-day awareness of life in the present moment. The Buddha teaches that when more mindful, one will be more likely to choose a skillful action that is a benefit to others, and less likely to do something unskillful that is harmful to ourselves or others. And following with this emphasis on meditation practice is a complementary focus on effort. According to the Buddha, only diligent effort leads to enlightenment, freedom from suffering. The Buddhist teacher Chogyam Trungpa famously said that in enlightenment there is no vacation. The meditator can never just put their feet up and relax and take a break. You always have to be mindful. Even though most Buddhist followers in the U.S. aren't monks or nuns, all of us are encouraged to have a meditation practice. In his book, Outliers, the writer Malcolm Gladwell discussed the idea of practice and how much practice it takes to be an expert in any endeavor. Gladwell stated that on the average, it takes about 10,000 hours of practice to be an expert. If you practice for 1 hour a day, it would take you 27 years to reach this level of accomplishment, right? So that's why this teaching of the Buddha is so important, because it's about bringing our meditation to our everyday life so we can practice it all the time, right? And so then we're getting a lot more time in each day. Not any practice will do. It has to be a practice that focuses you on challenging to stretch your skills each time. So for someone who is practicing the piano regularly, they'd have to be constantly learning new pieces and developing new skills each time they practice. The Buddha teaches that to lead a spiritually meaningful life, a peak performance in life, one must be mindful of one's actions, one's feelings, one's thoughts, and in tune to the world around us. Laziness or living in ignorance of how precious life is and indulging in sensual desire to distract us from the relief of suffering are considered unskillful actions in Buddhism. A better approach is to focus on a practice that challenges us to act mindfully every hour of every day to reduce the suffering of the world for ourselves and for others. There's a famous Buddhist story about in which you're asked to imagine that there's an ocean as vast as the universe. And in this ocean is a turtle. And every 100 years, this turtle comes up to the surface to breathe. Now imagine if when this turtle happened to come up to the surface, he put his head through the handle of a bucket floating on the surface. That would be extremely rare. And that our human life is even rarer than that. So the idea is that when we have such a precious gift, we really should focus on using it and practicing regularly. The 4 grounds of mindfulness is considered one of the Buddha's most extensive teachings on bringing our practice of meditation into our daily life. If you listen closely, you'll hear a little bit of what Ige Su talked about a couple weeks ago when she talked about the full awareness of breathing. As both teachings take us through our experience of the world using our body, our feelings, our minds, and our thoughts. In this talk, I would just be highlighting a small piece of each section of the 4 grounds of mindfulness. But there is a little handout at the front as you go out, and you can pick it up. It'll give you a link to Thich Nhat Hanh's translation of the sutra, and also Bhikkhu Bodhi wrote an essay last year about the sutra that I thought were really helpful. Section 2 of the 4 grounds of mindfulness begins with the question, what is the way to remain established in the awareness of body as body? Which the Buddha responds with the answer, when the practitioner walks, they know they are walking. When they stand, they know they are standing. When they sit down, they know they are sitting down. When they stand up, they know they are standing up. Laying down or waking up, they know they are laying down or waking up. The 4 grounds of mindfulness emphasize the importance of developing our mindfulness in daily life. Mindfulness is a form of awareness in which the person seeks to be more in tune with their life in the present moment. This awareness usually includes noticing the feeling of one's body, the inputs of one's senses, and any thoughts or emotions that are going on in our head. Someone taking a walk mindfully would try to be aware not only of how fast they're walking, but of the sensation of each foot as they placed it down and picked it up. They also might be aware of their position of their body, their shoulders, their arms, and also any internal sensations going on in their body, tightness or tension. Last month, I was really aware of my body because I was working out in the garage and I fell and I broke 5 of my ribs. I was really, at first, I couldn't sit down and meditate. I could hardly sit down or walk, and I really couldn't lay down in bed. We actually ordered in a hospital bed for me to sleep in bed because I was having so much pain from my ribs. And I was really upset about that, that I couldn't practice my traditional meditation until I realized how mindful I was being every day as I walked around the house. I took a lot of mindful effort to avoid having pain when I did anything. Okay? So I thought that was really amazing, and I wanted to pass that on, as part of your feeling of body as body, it's just, being aware of what you're doing each moment is part of that experience. The third section, the foreground of mindfulness, begins with the question: what is the way to remain established in the awareness of feeling as feelings? Which the Buddha answered by saying, when the practitioner has a pleasant feeling, they know immediately they have a pleasant feeling. When they have an unpleasant feeling, they know immediately they have an unpleasant feeling. When they have a neutral feeling, they know immediately they have a neutral feeling. Better awareness of our feelings, according to the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, allows us to cultivate more positive feelings and transform neutral sensations into pleasant ones. By paying more attention to the nuances of our day-to-day activities, we regain the pleasure of performing them. Mindfulness goal of being in the present moment does not mean that there isn't room for daydreaming or being swept away in a good book or a favorite movie. So you can still be mindful and watch the fourth season of Stranger Things, just so you know. The object in these cases is to make a decision to consciously engage in the activity rather than just doing the activity out of habit or out of boredom or trying to escape from life. The development of mindfulness seems to me to be even more important than ever. Our consumerist-driven society encourages us to constantly seek new experiences and happiness in external objects. Often our limited attention span and low tolerance for boredom. Often we have that. But wouldn't it be nice if we could just sit back and appreciate everything that we already have? Wouldn't it be wonderful if everything we needed to be happy could already be found within ourselves? According to one contemporary Buddhist teacher, the problem with us, Westerners, is that we want what we don't have and don't want what we, let me get that right. We want what we don't have and don't want what we don't have, okay? If we could just turn that around and want what we already have and not want what we don't have, then we would be happy. Okay? Easier said than done. So, but if we can apply mindfulness to our daily activities, even things like washing the dishes can be an enjoyable activity. Any activity that we normally find boring is probably because we're just not really paying attention. So turning that idea around and trying to find some enjoyment in those activities can bring you more happiness in the present moment. Section 4 of the Foreground of Mindfulness asks the question: what is the way to remain established in the meditation of mind on mind? Which the Buddha answers with the response: when the practitioner's mind is attached to something, they know they are attached. When they are not attached, they know they are not attached. When the practitioner's mind hates something, they know they hate something. When they are not hating, they know they are not hating. When their mind is confused, they know they are confused. When they are not confused, they know they are not confused. So a stereotype of a Buddhist is someone who is quiet and peaceful and never emotional. Kind of like curious Mr. Spock or from Star Trek or Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. For Mr. Spock and Data, feeling and understanding human emotions is basically an alien activity, right? Their inability to experience emotions makes it difficult for them to communicate with their fellow workers and also to empathize with them when things are going wrong. Buddhism isn't about not having emotions or not feeling one's emotions. It is instead about becoming more deeply familiar with all your emotions so you can experience them fully without being carried away by them or denying them. If you feel angry, for example, Buddhist teaching stresses you should not try to deny it because it's a negative emotion, but neither should you act on your anger, causing yourself harm or others. Rather, you should bring all your attention to your mood and try to come to an understanding of what has caused this sensation before deciding on a course of action. So when I was writing this, I was thinking, yes, it's easy to say that, right? Especially, and easy maybe to practice that when we're here in the temple. But what do you do when you're in your real life, and you're talking or interacting with someone and they're pushing your buttons and you can feel yourself getting hot and you can feel yourself getting ready to say something back to them in response? You're probably not going to sit back and think about, in that moment of heat, where did this come from? Why am I getting this way? And so what's recommended at that point is just take a pause. You're already at that point where you're about ready to explode. take a pause. Focus on your breathing. If you need to, focus on your walking and walk away, going back to the awareness of your body as body. And then when you have some time to cool down, then start to think about, why am I feeling this way? Start to bring a little bit more mindfulness to your feeling. The Buddha teaches that the first step in understanding any emotion we have is becoming aware of it. Without awareness, we are prone to acting impulsively, without consideration of the repercussions of our actions. There are, of course, times in our lives when we have to act quickly, right? If we're swerving to avoid an accident. But most of the time, we're better off just pausing before we act. Once we start to identify our emotions, we can move on to the next step of exploring what is triggering them. For example, if I'm getting really angry, but I'm not to the point where I'm going to explode, right? I'm at a point where I'm relatively calm. Maybe I'm on social media and I'm reading something, right? So I got to take time to type out a response. Before I respond, thinking a little bit about why I'm upset. Is it what the person said, or is it something else that's being sparked? Maybe some memory. The way our brain works is that we learn things in the past and then we create shortcuts. So it's easier for us to act in the future, in the present. We don't have to process everything every time, even though we probably should. So taking a moment to breathe and thinking about what this person said and what would be an appropriate response. A lot of times on social media, I guess the appropriate response is nothing, because you're probably just going to get another response back and things are going to build. But again, just that idea of taking a pause and relaxing and trying to thinking about why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Section 5 of the Four Grounds of Mindfulness asks the question, what is the way to remain established in the meditation of objects of mind as objects of mind? Now, so before I jump into that, I want to go back and review a little bit. So the first section was go into the woods, find the roots of a tree. Okay. The second section is focusing on your body, meditation within your body. I talked a little bit about walking meditation, but it could be breathing meditation, just awareness of what you're doing with your body in the present moment. The next section is feelings, right? So feelings are, in Buddhism, we're talking about feelings, we're just talking about positive, negative, and neutral ones, okay? And the idea there is focus on the positive and the neutral ones and see if you can't maybe transform those neutral ones into positive ones, because that happiness that you seek is already there within yourself. The next section was how to meditate on mind as mind. And here we're thinking about a little bit more developed emotions. We're taking that feeling of pleasantness or maybe that feeling of negativity, and we're turning it into anger, or we're turning it into depression in our mind. Okay? And so it's a little bit more elaborate process trying to analyze and figure out what's going on there and how can I act skillfully, or why am I being activated at this moment? So this next section, the last section, when we're talking about objects of mind as objects of mind, we're talking about an even more developed thinking process, and we're really focusing on the kind of thought patterns that are really important to our spiritual pursuits, okay? And the Buddha talks about patterns of thought that are helpful for us in practicing our path, and patterns of thought patterns that are a hindrance, okay? And I'm going to just focus on the hindrance for this talk, okay? So there's 5 of these hindrances, okay? They are desire, anger, ignorance, pride, and jealousy, okay? These unwholesome mind states are probably impossible for us to avoid. But maybe if we're mindful of them, we can reduce the negative results from them. Okay? In our consumer-driven society, desire is probably the primary emotion that we're all being activated regarding all the time. I mean, think desire for happiness and desire from freedom of suffering is basic to all of us, right? In our society, because it's so dominated by capitalism, is always focusing on how to utilizing our desires to sell things, right? So we're always being drawn in or being activated by media as a way to kind of get our desires to buy something. So the goal here is to try and manage that, okay? And it's sort of like you have to manage that almost like someone who has an addiction. We do have an addiction, I guess, to desire. And so if you think about an alcoholic who has an addiction to alcohol, one of the things they have to do is to avoid the streets where the liquor store is. And maybe they need to avoid their association with their friends who still drink, right? Because those things activate them and make it much harder to avoid that feeling. So with us, we have to think about that too. Are there things in our lives that we can maybe change so that we're not being, triggered or activated by desire? When I was a kid, whenever we had Christmas or a birthday, I was never satiated by what I got, even though my parents were huge spoilers. And at Christmas we had a ton of gifts when just me and my sister. No matter how many gifts I got, I was never satisfied. There's always something they didn't give me, and that bothered me when I was an adult. And when we had kids, I thought, how do we prevent that? So we didn't have TV. That's how we prevented that. We never had TV for our girls. And so when the Christmas came up or their birthday, when you ask them what they wanted, they're like, I have no idea. They didn't want anything. They didn't have TV and cartoons and commercials telling them what they needed to be happy. So that was an amazing lesson for me. And I think, that's a huge thing to do. We still don't have TV, and we have Netflix, but there's no commercials. So, that's just something I recommend is how do you look at your life and how do you to identify what's causing desire, anger, ignorance, pride, jealousy, and can you eliminate those things from your life so that they're not, activating you? I mean, that's a simple way to kind of get beyond that. Okay? So getting back to the beginning of this talk, even if we're not going anywhere for vacation this summer, it's important to remember that we can practice mindfulness in our daily life as a way of achieving the happiness that we seek. Okay? This acknowledgement can be in recognizing or bringing mindfulness to our body and remembering what a gift this is. We're like, that if you remember that turtle that only came up to the surface every 100 years and just happened to put his head through the handle of a bucket. How rare is that? How rare is it for us to be born as a human being and not be born as an insect? How many billions and billions of insects are in their world? Okay. The second part maybe is to become aware, more mindful of our feelings and be really appreciative of those pleasant feelings that we have. And I think in summer, there are even more, right? Because there's more sunshine, there's more warmth. We can go to the lake. So many things we can experience without going too far or going on a big vacation. The next one, bring acknowledgement to our mind as mind, bring acknowledgement to our mental states, like our moods, and really focusing on what are the things in our day that put us in a pleasant mood, put us in a good mood, and can we increase that? We don't have to dwell on the negative things. We can focus on the positive things. And then the last thing to be grateful for is just the fact that we have a spiritual community here that's supportive of us. We have the temple here to come. We have teachers. We have online teachings. Living in the West nowadays is so much easier to practice Buddhism than it was 50 years ago or 60 years ago. There's so many opportunities. So I just wanted to end this with the idea that every day and every moment we are alive, we are always doing something. We're always feeling something. We're always thinking about something. We are always practicing something, right? So just being mindful of what we are practicing, we can transform that practice into development of our spiritual practice. Thank you. Prepare yourself for meditation. So we have some announcements here, June events. Lojong celebration will be on June 13th, Monday night. And all of these events, the details are listed in the newsletter. So if you have not signed up at our newsletter, there's a place at the front to do that. Dharma Sutra discussion group is on Thursdays at 9:30 with meditation at 9:30, 10 to 11 discussion. That's here at the temple. Radical Dharma book club was last Wednesday, and it happens at the first Wednesday of the month. And Tanjin Su is leading that. And so the book we're reading is called Radical Dharma. So it's just discussion of book of that book. The Grand Rapids Temple Board meeting is on the fourth Sunday of each month. And the Buddhist-based recovery meetings are on Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay. Any other announcements? Please. Online.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. My name is Tricia Gosling, and my birth name is. Oh, it's louder. Oh. Oh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tricia Gosling, and my birth name is Chang De Su. It's wonderful to see you all. This beautiful temple that we gather in as a Sangha for sacred practice and to find the best version of ourselves and of others relies on the total contributions of others who attend. So the actual practice of giving and receiving is a Buddhist practice called dana. So if you would like to share in that practice, there are boxes that you can give. You can give at your contribution here at each of the entrances. I would encourage you to go to GrandRapidsZen.org because you'll find there a lot more detail, and maybe some of this you might not remember. Go home, but you can give to also Amazon Smile, and there's a place there that a percentage of anything that you were to contribute would be just brought to the temple at no cost to you. So that's another great opportunity. I really am grateful for this chance to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much.